So I don't do these type of disclaimers, but the subject here is a little special. So, Metal, I'm aware that you had a little spat with the CC a while back. Now, while I don't think you have the same feelings for CC as you once had, it has been a while, I want to make a few things clear. This video isn't intended to attack you or anything like that. I'm just here to criticize the things you said, just like you're doing here. Any pot shots I make towards you are just that. I don't mean anything personal by them, and I want to apologize in advance if any of these do upset you. Believe me, that isn't my intention. Finally, to those watching, please do not go to Metal's channel and give him crap. Let's keep a discussion here and be friendly. Now, onto the video. So y'all might want to get out the cameras, cause it's time for some commentator on technically a commentator even if he doesn't want to call himself one action. God, that was wordy. Folks, let me introduce you to the people misfortunate enough to be in a video with me. So in April of 2018, Mother's Basement, or Jeff as I'll be calling him, uploaded a video titled Persona 5 The Animation is a Waste of Time. Guess what it was about? About 8 months later, TheMetalBlade5, Countdowner, Let's Player, and Response video maker whose name might sound familiar to some as he had a spat with a commentator named Realm Wars after the latter commentated on his video about Pokemon. But anyways, he responded to that video and tried to guess what I thought about it. Finally, there's me. Hi. Now before I start the video, I'd like to put a big ol' spoiler warning about Persona 5. This video will discuss the entire first palace and some of the later palaces and characters are shown, so if you have yet to beat or play P5, you might want to turn back. Okay, now with those losers out of the way, we can start this thing.
Kind of jumping the gun, but the main issue I have with this video is that it was made when there were only 3 episodes of the anime. And to not make myself a hypocrite, I wanted to wait until the anime had finished before doing this. However, that took longer than anticipated as I saw everybody saying that it was going to be 24 episodes long. But they were all wrong. It was actually 26 episodes. Then when the anime did end and I was preparing to make this response, they revealed that they were going to release an OVA at the end of the year, which I'd imagine is supposed to cover the rest of the game considering they didn't actually finish the game in the main anime, so then I decided to wait on that. But ultimately, I decided to just make this video anyway because if I wait for the OVA, then this video wouldn't come out until next year, and I've made barely any responses this year.
I wanted to wait so I wouldn't be a hypocrite, but I can't wait too long cause content. This is such a trash excuse, man. You needing content wouldn't magically make your pot sheet disappear. You'd still be a hypocrite. Now you're just an impatient one. Your audience seems understanding enough. If you explain why the video took long to come out, they probably wouldn't be upset. Oh, and that's how your hypocrisy point. It's dumb. Your problem with Jeff isn't that his video came out when there was 3 episodes out, but because of what he was saying in regards to there being 3 episodes out. Unless you were about to make statements that needed more episodes to be legitimate, you really wouldn't be a hypocrite, but you know, that's an entirely new issue that if you were going to be saying that type of stuff, I am so scared about whatever you're about to say now.
In fact, there are some things in his video I do agree with and will bring them up just to show that I'm not blindly hating on him, despite some people thinking that agreeing with anything the person you're responding to says is idiotic.
Hey, Metal, when did Duel say this? I thought this might be referring to her commentary on you, but the only thing she said towards you agreeing with the subject was that there was no point in covering it, and in your comment on her, you don't mention this at all. So, either you're referring to some other instance of Doodle saying this, most likely towards somebody else, and if that's the case, how would you expect anybody in your audience to understand what you mean, as they're probably not familiar with Doodle tones or her content, or you completely miss what Doodle said, and honestly, I can believe either.
You're being too serious, it's just a pot shot,
I hear somebody say. Well, in that case, it's not a good one, as once again, Doodle didn't say that or anything like that, so as a joke, it really doesn't make sense.
There is no reason to watch this anime instead of playing the game it's based on, which already has voice acting, animation, and cinematic direction that is, in many cases, better than the adaptation.
There's no reason to watch the anime when you can play the game. Playing the game is, by miles, the better experience of Persona 5. I won't deny that. But I think that belief is very counterproductive considering that like 99% of anime are adaptations. You could easily apply this to other anime and say, well, what's the point in watching when you could just read the manga or the light novel?
Okay, nice to know you didn't hear him saying the game has far more superior things in it, and implying that you should play the game more because there are more worthwhile and better things in it than the anime, and not just because it's the game.
I also find this attitude to be pretty fatalistic, as going back to how this video was made when there were only 3 episodes, you're kind of assuming that the anime is just going to copy the game, when, as it's an adaptation, it's going to have to make changes, and it does more frequently later on. a lot of the time for the worse, but differences from the game are apparent that aren't just cutting things out.
He literally discusses the changes the anime made right after you cut back, so I don't know where he's assuming that the anime won't make any changes. Even in the clip, he mentions how the game has better cinematic direction, you know, how the story is handled, further proving he knows the anime is making changes. Please, get equipped with ears. Actually, where are you getting that he had no idea that the show would make no changes? Him saying there's no reason to watch the show and even play the game because, once again, you're ignoring all the reasons why he said that. Things like the voice acting and animation. All those things point to the anime not living up to the quality of the game and not it being a clone of the game. I also want to bring up something from Jeff's original video. This clip.
Ever make a full adapt or die about this show because a lot of the changes are just cuts for time, and even if the show does make significant narrative changes later, it would be so much more work to break down than this anime is worth.
Yep, there's Jeff acknowledging that the anime wouldn't make changes, yet for some reason it was included in your video. I wonder why.
And even the characters who do get development are extremely lacking. An and Ryuji feel like cardboard cutouts next to their in-game counterparts, and Ren somehow has less personality than he did as a sassy silent protagonist, whose name is and always will be Akira. Now he's just the stoic dude who says things to move the plot forward.
So this point on the characters is a mixed bag of agreement and disagreement for me. I agree with you on Ryuji, and An I disagree with. I felt she was very close to her game counterpart. With the anime only being 3 episodes in at the time of your video, it was only at the part of the game when An is cold towards Akira and Ryuji most of the time, rather than showing her true colors. Literally, the end of episode 3 is An joining the party when she opens up more from that point onward. So I feel you're basing this claim of An's character being butchered off of when she wasn't really being herself.
Hey, more humorous what Jeff said. Jeff specifically said the characters that do get development are extremely lacking, showing that he thinks the development An got in the anime isn't as good as the development the game gave An, and not that the entire character is bad.
Lastly with Akira, cause I think Akira Kurusu is the better name, he's in the middle of that. When he's Joker in the metaverse, I felt he wasn't as cocky or sassy as in the game, which bummed me out. But when in the real world, I actually think they followed the game pretty well for the most part, since in the game, he acts timid to avoid any trouble. I do think they could have incorporated his sass in the real world when hanging out with confidants, and I did feel this was kinda boring at times as well, but I also reiterate what I've said before.
Metal? How can you shoot yourself in the foot like that? I mean, you're made out of metal! Dang, the metal blades are more OP than I thought. Anyways, you say Ren's timid in the real world just to then say that you wish the anime added in his sass when he was hanging out with the confidants, implying that in the game, Ren can be timid but also sassy in the real world. So, you know, it's definitely not like the game, and the anime just completely missed Ren's character, so please shut up.
As for the lack of emotion, they do cut An's immediate reaction when Shiho jumps, which does remove a lot of the shock impact, and I just realized that was a really bad choice of words. But the scene where Shiho's being put in the ambulance played out very similar to how it did in the game. To me, at least.
So, the anime doesn't have the same impact the game has? So, you basically just agreed with Jeff and proves his point? Joy. Also, what was that bull at the end? You do know your opinion doesn't debunk Jeff's, right? Right? Metal? You do know that, right? Why aren't you saying anything?
And most of how bad the animation is. All I really have to say about that when referring to the animation in general is that I don't think it looks bad all the time. There are moments where I think it looks pretty good, still nowhere near as good as the game's anime cutscenes, albeit those good-looking moments are more frequent later on, so it once again goes back to my issue of when the video was made.
What does his video coming out early have anything to do with this? At least with the earlier point about him waiting till the other thieves came out, you had at least proved that Jeff's initial point was shaky and this could have provided a solution, but here, no, you admit the point was good, just that the animation improved later on. And actually, no, not that, just that there were moments of good looking animation. Not the animation as a whole, but moments. A few good looking moments here and there don't somehow make the animation in between those moments any better. Go eat a sandwich that's been dropped.
And relating to that point,
but even the parts of the anime that should definitely be more visually impressive than the game, namely the all-out attacks which are used in every episode as canned animations and can thus justify having more time spent polishing them up, not unlike a magical girl transformation sequence, they, how to put this nicely, they look like garbage.
The thing with the all-out attacks is, yes, they look terrible. At the time. You say they're in every episode, when, if I want to be nitpicky, they were in the first episode, but that really outdates this video, as in episode 5, they slightly improve it by adding the background, his face is still messed up, and then the finishing touch is never used again until episode 21, when it looks much better than before. Still not great, but a major improvement. And the last time it's used, I actually thought it looked cool. It's like A1 Pictures knew it sucked and responded to the backlash before it even started. Further adding to why I think this video should have been made later, so this could have been taken into consideration.
More of you agreeing with the point just to add in some bold reasons for why he should have waited. Metal, I might actually hate you. So, one moment where they add in something small, which is so minor it shouldn't really count as a reason against him. Then another where, by your own words, while it's an improvement, it's also not that great. Which, by the way, is some really bad wording, as you're implying that the improvement was there, but it also isn't that good. So really, why would you bring it up, as all it really does is strengthen Jeff's overall point and weakens yours. And then they do something completely different. Metal, how does 1.5 better instances of the animation being good mean that the other parts of it don't exist? No, those other battling parts are still there and outnumber the good ones, so Jeff's point really isn't as outdated as you're making it out to be.
Skipping past how the game's all-out attacks are so much better.
And let's not even get started on how bad the show's opening is compared to the games. We'll save that for another video.
I've noticed that you haven't made a video about the opening, so you might already be aware of this, and if that's the case, I apologize for inadvertently insulting your intelligence.
How are you insulting his intelligence by pointing out info he missed? You're not implying that he missed the info out of laziness or something. Actually, you pointed out info he missed earlier in the video.
Even stated before the anime began that it would have a large deviation from the game at one point. I have no idea what that deviation was unless the OVA is going to have something to do with it. So at the time your video was made, changes were promised, but you seem to ignore this claim.
So that is insulting intelligence, but this is. Or wait, even better, you make an entire video telling him all the things he's arguing about is wrong, also isn't insulting his intelligence. I do not get you.
But the opening that was used in episode 2 was a placeholder. Starting with episode 4, they used the real opening for the first theme, which is so much better. In fact, on the day that episode 2 came out, I looked at uploads of the placeholder opening just because I really liked the opening theme, and it was reiterated throughout the comments that it was a placeholder, and someone even posted a link to a Japanese article with A1 Pictures stating this themselves. Unfortunately, all of these videos were deleted after the real opening was revealed, but I do know for a fact that that version of the opening was confirmed to be a placeholder immediately.
That intro was confirmed to be a placeholder. I have no proof that it was, you just have to believe me, guys. You know, if your proof was deleted and you can't be bothered to go out and find some new evidence, maybe don't make the point, because what reason does anybody have to trust what you're saying, okay? Though, having proof wouldn't change how this point is still wrong. Congratulations, a second intro was promised. Now why does that mean Jeff can't find this intro bad? A better version of something doesn't Thanos away the previous version of it, Metal.
The existence of Persona 4 the animation was at least somewhat justified by the fact that it was based on a PS2 game. It's not hard to one-up that visually, or to do things that simply weren't possible in the original story.
But couldn't you make the same argument of what's the point when you can just play the game for Persona 4 the animation? I find unfair that you give that anime a free pass just because it's a PS2 game when the same rules can apply. And it also goes back to my point of assuming the anime isn't going to make any changes.
So when did Capcom make a straw man? I mean, he seems a little controversial, but hey, whatever works. One of the biggest things he gets on for P5A is that it's a visual downgrade compared to the game, but it makes sense that he just praised P4A for being visually better than the game. Also, you seem to ignore him saying that P4's existence was also somewhat justified, meaning Jeff might think that P4A is pointless to some extent. Also, you misunderstood Jeff when he said the show could do things not possible on a PS2. You think it's referring to the story, but it's actually referring to the visuals. This segment is an extension of Jeff's problems with the animation. Before this, he also mentioned the visuals, and right after this, he goes on to say this about P5.
But Persona 5 is a modern JRPG, one that arguably raised the bar for all anime-style game visuals.
So they're showing that that statement is referring to the visuals. Also, keep what Jeff said about P4A in mind, because that's gonna hurt him later.
An anime adaptation could take what's only implied by the game's combat system and craft a series of dynamic, exciting action scenes that make full use of the characters' distinctive weapons and powers, as well as the environments around them to allow for creative choreography and the fights are just Pokemon battles where everyone throws colored energy at each other until someone dies. never mind.
Except that with this being made when there were only 3 episodes, there had only been 2 fight scenes at the time. You're judging the entire show's action off of just 2 fight scenes. Granted, first impressions are important, but you're literally just saying the show's action as a whole is bad after watching 2 fight scenes.
Oh, but you saying the all-out attacks point was outdated because of 2 good-looking ones is just fine, I guess. Also, no, he never said the entire show's action was bad. Where are you getting this from? Him saying the show? Because in this context, Jeff is more saying the show as a quicker and less wordy way of saying the show in its current state. He just did this earlier with referring to the all-out attacks as, just all-out attacks and characters just the characters. You do this when you refer to the 3 episodes by just saying at the time. So how come you're not getting it now?
Early episodes? After those early fights, I thought the show's action gradually improved over time to the point that there were moments that, to me, felt legitimately cool and dynamic, like the battles against Kaneshiro and especially Okumura and Sai, minus several instances of bad-looking animation and CG. While my experience with Persona 4, the animation is limited to just watching clips, the action scenes there didn't feel that different to 5 in terms of structure.
What's with the mention of P4A's fight scenes at the end? Was it supposed to be a rebuttal to Jeff? Because if so, you're missing the point of why Jeff is talking about P5A's fight scenes. He brought up the fight scenes as the way the anime could redeem itself from the boring animation. Meanwhile, he thinks P4A had better animation than P5, so there's really no need for that anime to redeem itself. Now, another possibility for you bringing up P4A was just to state your own opinion on it, but given the way you worded this, saying how the fights have similar structure, which is a direct rebuttal to what Jeff said, it doesn't sound like you're giving just a harmless opinion, and while you're trying to make a point, which is dumb. Also, can we talk about how this point ends cause
structure?
Every fight.
It's bad. You cut yourself off right after saying structure, like immediately after it, with no silence after it. So it feels like right after you said the word, you said something else that you didn't mean to, and you said it too close, so you couldn't really cut it out, and it just comes off extremely jarring, especially when you get it right after this and before it. Yeah, I'm nitpicking, but my point still stands, so please shut up.
And while I was initially happy to see that the 20 out of 10 fantastic original music from the game is being used in the anime, it's used so poorly that I really wish they just hadn't bothered. The main battle theme, Last Surprise, is designed to underscore slow-paced RPG battles, adding tension and excitement as you weigh your options and make clutch decisions. It just doesn't work as generic anime battle music, like, not at all. The progression's all wrong. Daybreakers at least recut the song to better match the visuals of its big fight scene, but when it's used to underscore Ryuji's awakening in the show's 2nd episode, it honestly feels more like a bad AMV mashup than the intended musical accompaniment for the scene.
I kinda get what you're saying here about Last Surprise, but I think when used under the right circumstances, it can work really well. For Ryuji's awakening battle, it is the first fight scene in the show, so I can imagine them using Last Surprise to commemorate that, even though willpower is used for the fight in the game. When I got to that part and Last Surprise started playing, it got me really excited to see the fight that was about to unfold, as well as giving me the feeling of, you bad guys are so screwed. Essentially the same feeling the song gives me when I ambush an enemy in the game. While I am speaking for myself here, I wouldn't be surprised that that was the intention. Besides, Ryuji's awakening was the only instance of them using Last Surprise at the time.
Okay, time to address something that's been annoying me since the video started. Metal, for the love of everything sharp and pointy, can you please stop shoving in your opinion about literally everything Jeff says? Every point has you on some tangent about something and all it does is pad out the point. Take this one for example. All of that stuff just for you to say, well, it was only used once, which by the way is stupid. Like with the intro, it doesn't change that it was a problem that Jeff had with the show. But anyway, see how short the actual point was? Yet it ended up being 30 seconds long because Metal really just can't shut up. Metal, this is a response video. Your opinions on what P5A did right or wrong are largely irrelevant and just harm the video. If you really wanted to give your thoughts on P5A, you could have just done it at the end of the video and not extend the video's runtime to an absurd degree just to add in your 5 cents.
Ida Satoki was also the sound director for Tsukigakure, Sakura Quest, Magi, Blue Exorcist, and Angel Beats, so we know that he can do much better work than this, but for whatever reason, he didn't bring his A game to Persona 5, or even his D game, and that just makes the already underwhelming action feel even worse.
But again, this was 3 episodes in at this point. Like what I said with the action, you're judging an entire 26 episode show's sound direction off of just watching the first 3 episodes. And your only example of this is with the Last Surprise part.
At first I'm just gonna skip over this because really it had the same issues as the fight scene, then no point in repeating myself, but then another thing hit me. In Metal's last point, he used the only use once thing that he used earlier source of fight scenes. However, in here, it's used to make a much more grander point, and it isn't as aggravating compared to his other point. But why is this important? Well, here's a little idea. What if Metal just remove the last point about the sound, and just add that part about Jeff's video in at this point? We still would have had the point about there being only one use of the song, but it would have added on to a point that makes it less aggravating, and the video would have had a much better structure.
Well, okay, to be completely fair, we haven't seen Kamoshida's boss battle yet. That is a much more significant fight that's going to demand a unique musical accompaniment, and it's going to more or less require more creative fight choreography that uses the boss arena effectively, as well as tactics other than just, hitting him until he dies.
This is where the whole issue I have with this video being made when there were only 3 episodes is fully shown. You say that maybe Kamoshida's boss fight will be an improvement, but you didn't wait to see if that would be the case. If you made this video after episode 4 aired, then you could have judged the fight for yourself, and if you thought it sucked, then you could add that to your argument about the action. Your video was uploaded on the same day that episode 4 aired. I know this because I clearly remember seeing it pop up several hours before I watched episode 4. Even though you were likely working on this video at least several days beforehand, you still could have kept it on hold, watched episode 4, and then throw in your thoughts as a last-minute edit.
Hey, this was decent. I mean, Jeff could have cut out the part about Jeff's video coming out the same day as episode 4, as he admits that Jeff's video was done days in advance, and could have instead just said that Jeff should have put his video on hold till he seen this fight, but no, that was really it. Anything else?
From that point, he just explains that even if the boss fights were done amazingly, they wouldn't be the same as playing them.
And there it is. So you're worried that Jeff addressed your point, but instead of, addressing that point, or something that someone with a brain would do, you instead ignore it and make your flawed point. This combined with all the other times you blatantly ignore stuff just said just so you can say your crap is starting to make you look a bit dishonest. You might want to look into that. Metal just rambles on and goes in final thoughts, so, why don't I give mine? Metal, get a hearing aid. This video was plagued by you misunderstanding what Jeff was saying, and when we were doing that, you were leaving out the context of Jeff's points. I don't really know what to say for the first half other than pay attention, scrub, and, maybe look over the video a second time, maybe after you read the script and all that, but for the latter half? Metal, it's clear from watching your other responses, and this one, that you don't want to come off as a jerk to the target, but you cutting things out that your target says that might have addressed points you made means you come off as a gigantic jerk who doesn't really care about their target. Metal, you'll have to change points that happen to be wrong, and if that happens to make a main point not make as much sense, either think about that main point whether it's right to begin with, or make some changes. And finally, with the future episodes. Now, Metal, I mean this without zero exaggeration. These were the worst parts of the video. You say the reason you had to your episode because Jeff should have known that the anime could fix the issues he had with the show. Now this reason isn't entirely bad, but the problem comes down to the execution. Most of the time where the future eps were brought up were when Jeff really wasn't making claims that the anime would never improve. Let's use Jeff talking about the characters. We brought up to future episodes, Jeff never said that all of the fantasies would get the same treatment, just that the current ones were done poorly. How about the all attacks point, where Jeff never said that all attacks could improve, just that they were bad. There weren't really any times where Jeff said the anime couldn't improve and be good. He admitted the show was passable, so he doesn't think all of it is super bad, or nothing at least that would imply that he thinks the show can't improve. You can bring up him calling the show pointless and a waste of time as him judging the show's quality, but I once again like to bring up Jeff calling the show passable and the Kamoshida fights, as that shows that Jeff saying the show was pointless isn't necessarily him saying the show cannot improve or is bad. Pointless and bad are two separate things. I could say an HD remaster of a game is pointless, as the original still looks good and plays fine, while also saying that the remaster is a good remaster. Now, I do think there was a way you could have shown that Jeff should have waited until more episodes came out. You could have just pointed out times where Jeff's reasoning needed a little more episodes to make his point a little more solid. Actually, you did this with the fight scene, so what happened? Wow, these final thoughts were long. Didn't mean to go all boon on you, Metal, but it be like that sometimes. Anyways, that does it for me. Keep cool, guys, and until next time.